So I'll count it off.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3.
Adios, let's go.
1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Rehearsal Room. Nick here.
Aaron's here.
This week we are going to tackle something that Aaron and I usually talk about anyway, but we figured we'd let you into this discussion. We're going to see what our favorite top 10 action directors are. There is a bit of a criteria that we've set. At least I've set this for myself. I don't know if Aaron necessarily set this.
I tried to keep to it as best I could.
Okay. It is tough. It is tough
is.
choosing your favorite action because one of the things that I kind of wanted to align by was choosing movies that are primarily action.
Yeah.
Not a movie that's got action in it, but
Right.
more of an action movie that's got other stuff in it.
Right.
And as for my list, I chose directors where I at least like 3 action movies up to 5.
Same. Yeah. No. I kind of cheated on. I won't lie.
Yeah.
Or at least I think it is. Maybe when I explain it, maybe you'll say, nope, no, you're within. But yeah, I kept it to minimum of 3, and if they had 3, most likely they had many more.
Sure.
Some
Yes.
of them, for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
If I could find 3, chances were they had many more that I was a big fan of.
I do have one honorary mention, even though, he is a fantastic director. I think he is known for other genre movies, but I do have one honorary mention at the start. So if there's anything you want to get off your chest before we start.
I think I'm good. Like I said, my number 10. I assume we'll go from 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll
so,
trade back and forth. Then yes.
so do you have any honorary mentions first?
One of that definitely hit me was as far as a great action movie and a great action sequence in which he directed John Frankenheimer's movie Ronin.
Yes,
He did do some stuff in the 70s. I've never Black Sunday, stuff like that I don't think I've ever seen. So I can't comment. I've heard he is one of those great action directors. But Ronin was probably the first one that came to my mind where it was like fantastic action sequence, but maybe not a director necessarily known for action.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But not one that could make my list because he didn't have 3.
One that did have 3 that I'm, I almost don't want to just leave him as an honorary mention, but he will be my honorary mention for this time around, is John Carpenter.
I stared at him for a while.
So my choices would have been Assault on Precinct 13,
Amen.
Escape from New York,
There you go.
and Big Trouble in Little China.
For sure.
And, to a lesser extent, Escape from LA.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Dude.
Great fucking movies,
Yeah.
all of them. He should have ranked higher, but I think I know him and enjoy him more in other genres, Even though Big Trouble in Little China, one of my favorite movies.
It's,
right?
it's definitely one of those ones we share for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so-
and obviously Halloween
Halloween,
is where he makes his bread and bones. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
The Thing, so
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
it's
And then you
these
get
other
the
movies.
They Live, which it's got action, but
It's got
science
action,
fiction.
but it's science fiction.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
no.
dystopian future,
For sure.
So so that's kind of where we're headed, as far as our selections. So let's start it off, Aaron, if you don't mind.
Okay, so my number 10, and again, I feel like I'm cheating a little bit, let me know, is because technically his action films are a series,
Okay.
but there are multiples of them, and my number 10 is George Miller.
Okay.
The Mad Max,
Fantastic choice. Yeah,
Furiosa, to me, are some of the all-time great action films. Obviously these newer ones even more so. I mean, just he tells you 10 minutes of story in the beginning and 10 minutes of story, and the rest of it's just a car chase. And I'm in it to win it. I absolutely love it. Babe's got some action, I guess, but
Well, Happy Feet.
the dance routines are amazing.
They are.
Again, he didn't have technically 3 films that I could put in there, but
Okay.
to me, that Mad Max series and the Furiosa to go with it, to me, it's just like he has this late in his career, even to raise the bar on what an action film could be is it's just amazing to me.
Yeah.
And he's just those movies are indelible in my mind of movies like with the Mad Max I grew up watching,
For sure, yeah.
or these new ones that have now become new classics for not only myself but even my children.
Yeah, of course, yeah. They're pretty long lasting.
Oh.
You know, like the themes they're almost evergreen at this point.
Yes,
you know?
sir.
And the action from the 70s up till now, it's been, I think, pretty groundbreaking.
Oh.
You know, the way he films.
That DIY spirit in those first ones,
Yeah.
compared to what he's doing now. Is,
I mean, even
is,
I think he does include some DUI,
they
inspirations
are
in there.
Australian after all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so that's a great choice.
Okay, good. I'm glad I didn't cheat then.
No. Believe me. I mean, you'll see.
All right.
Okay, so my number 10 was
Please.
Michael Mann.
Okay.
He made Heat, which, again,
Yeah.
we mentioned
Oh.
earlier. We were talking a bit, and we mentioned the gunshot,
Mm-hmm.
the gunfight scene. Last of the Mohicans.
Yes.
Miami Vice, Public Enemies.
Yes.
So these are all, I think, great stories on their own.
Oh.
But I think the action stands out a little bit more in all of these.
I mean,
you
the
know?
Heat gun. I mean, maybe most people probably know this by now. I'm sure it's some fun fact that you can find on Facebook. But
Yeah.
the shootout in L.A.
Yeah.
The Marines still use that to show you how to fire when you have fire coming from behind and in front, and how to move forward
Yep.
on a target.
Yep.
That's how well that was.
I mean,
done.
not only that, but it inspired a real life gunfight in North Hollywood, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So
no,
like
it's absolutely.
when something is that influential, for better or worse,
Yes.
I mean,
one is
that's
better. One is definitely
exactly
worse.
right. Plus, great cast.
Oh, absolutely.
So Michael Mann would be my number 10 spot.
Tons of great movies from that guy. I mean, he's I won't give it away, but yeah, he's definitely on my list. A little higher than you, but
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
definitely on my list. Okay, so my number 9, Richard Donner.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This was it's one of those guys where you know his name,
Yeah.
and then you look at his IMDb and you go, well, god dang. I mean, first of all, the Superman series, one of
Love
the
it,
original of the superhero movies.
Sure,
Really pulled that off. One that is definitely, especially in our age group, will always be part of our life. Goonies.
Goonies. Yeah.
And then the Lethal Weapon
Weapons,
movies.
yeah.
I mean, despite what Mel Gibson has become,
Yeah.
but at the time, I mean, those movies were groundbreaking in the
Yeah.
buddy cop. And there's been a million other movies that have literally just copied that.
Yep.
His action sequences and everything are just fantastic. And excuse me, those 3 movies alone, or I guess the Superman
4.
series, but
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean,
always loved those.
I would say that franchises and series like that count.
Okay.
Because especially if it's the same director doing all of them.
Yes.
Then it definitely.
I mean, he did. I think he does the first 2, right?
He does the first
for
2,
sure,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. And again, and obviously he's gone on to do many other movies that are outside of the action, which to me just shows the range he has.
range, sure.
But I guess some of my criteria also was influential.
Okay.
Whether
all right.
only on myself as someone who watched these and went, ooh, I like action that looks like this, or
Yeah.
just in general.
I did the influential on myself primarily.
Okay.
Because that's going to explain my selection.
I got
for my 9th spot.
Okay, please.
So my number 9 spot is taken by Robert Rodriguez.
Oh man,
Because
almost
he
made it.
has
Yeah.
El Mariachi,
Yes.
Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Machete,
Yes.
and if we want to be a little generous, the Spy Kids trilogy,
Yeah. Oh,
which is fantastic.
they really are.
you
My
know?
kids love those movies.
Plus, we get the introduction to Uncle Machete
Yeah.
in those
Oh, yeah.
movies, right? So, again, kind of out of the box with his style.
Mm-hmm.
He has made other movies that I think would technically fall under action, like Sin City.
Yeah,
you
Sin
know?
City, Dust Till Dawn.
Dust
I
Till
mean, I know
Dawn,
that's
you know?
technically not he directed, but
He-
only right. Quentin writes Dust Till Dawn.
Yeah, they both. Yeah, Quentin Tarantino
Of course
wrote
he
it,
did.
and
He
then
wrote the part where he
Rodriguez.
gets to suck on what's her name's toes. Of course he wrote it.
Of course, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, half of that is horror, and then the other half is all action. right?
Absolutely.
So, I think Robert Rodriguez had a good style, and
Yeah.
those movies I can always come back to and be like, I'm entertained by.
That was
this.
a hard takeoff on my list. He was Believe me, he was floating around my list the whole time because I looked at that same thing and went just like, I mean, El Mariachi alone. Again, you talk about influence, whether to yourself or outside. You know, I remember when that movie came out, the talk about here we are again with this truly independent director, credit cards and money from friends to make this movie. And when you watch that and you watch Desperado, you know, there's obviously changes in there because he gets more money, he can make things a little slicker and so on and so forth. But the story still remains the same, and it's a really very good, well done movie.
Because ultimately, I think I read this Desperado is a remake of El Mariachi.
Ultimately, yes.
You know, with just a bigger budget.
Bigger budget, and Antonio Banderas and so forth.
Salma Hayek. Yeah.
And our introduction to Machete. Especially as a character outside of Heat, you know, where it's just like minimal. Like, he, you know, comes in with throwing them knives.
With the knives, Because that you know, that motif that Danny Trejo had, it's present in other movies, but it does start in those.
That's the one that broke him. That's the one where people went, who's the guy with the huge tattoo on his chest? You know, he becomes the scariest man in all of Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And now the nicest guy.
Right. And again, no, Robert Rodriguez, again, you're 2 for 2 on guys where I go, damn it, they were on line too, or, you know, because I really just, I hate cutting those dudes, you know what I mean? Robert Rodriguez especially.
Because he also has Planet Terror.
Which, you know? I think is the better one of that dual movie.
Agreed.
By a long shot. It's not even funny. Yes. He's another one where it was hard to cut because I looked at his IMDb and you go, I don't think there's one movie here I don't like.
Right. Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? And again, the Spy Kids, my kids, that was their introduction to whoever, you know, their idea when they were children of what Robert Rodriguez did was far different than what I knew.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So no, great one. Yeah. My number 8, again, it's somebody who did action films, but definitely around, you know, others, part of it. And that's Ridley Scott.
All right.
You know, I have, I wanted to put Alien, which is technically, I know, not an action film, but so I said, okay, even if we extract an Alien and we extract a Blade Runner, which are, you know, let's be honest, those are the ones that made Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
But you're still the 3 I chose that I think, you know, Black Rain, I think is an underrated Ridley Scott movie.
Yeah.
Really cool, very stylized and everything.
Yeah.
G.I. Jane, while I know some of the hype around it was a little, and it's not exactly a great film, but really cool action. Really, you're into it. Another one of those movies, if you go back and watch it now, you're like, my God, everybody's in this. And I didn't know who any of these people were at the time, you know? And then the king of the, holy shit, is everybody in this movie? That he directed, Black Hawk Down.
Black Hawk Down,
which I can, it's a tough watch. I don't pretend to be a soldier in that way, but as a person who was in the Army, it's a tough watch to see to some degree, but it's also a hell of a good movie. And it's just,
I mean, that's one of the ones
are amazing.
That's one of those movies that anytime it's on, if I'm flipping around, I'm going to watch it.
It comes on any of the streaming channels, it's automatically in the queue. It's not even a question. Absolutely. And again, another fun one to go back and just be like, is there anyone, like, honestly, I think you and I are the only 2 people that didn't make the cut to get into Black Hawk Down.
I missed the call that.
I tried. What can I say? Obi-Wan Kenobi beat me out. What can I do? You know? All right, so yours,
my
please.
number 8 is Luc Besson.
Dude, okay.
La Femme Nikita.
Yes.
Leon the Professional, and my absolute favorite, The Fifth Element.
Yes. No. Again, another one that danced around mine. Go ahead.
The Fifth Element, obviously, it's got tons of sci-fi stuff in there, but when you strip it down, I think it's an action movie through and through.
Absolutely.
Right? From whether they're on their home planet or on the cruise ship.
For sure.
It's just explosions left and right.
Yeah.
People shooting each other at, you know, with aliens, gunfights galore, you know. Leon the Professional has probably one of the best endings, one of the most emotional endings. Somehow Danny Aiello is a mobster, which, okay, you're the only guy that's going to make me believe this, right? And of course, La Femme Nikita, one of the first times that we see, well, not the first times, but one of the major, I guess, representations of like a heroine. You know? He also made Lucy, right? Which
love that one.
Scarlett Johansson, right? She's actually that's one of the few movies I like with Scarlett Johansson.
I love Lucy. I can watch that all. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I thought, hell yeah, Luc Besson. I love all these movies that he did. They're very memorable to me. I can go back and watch them anytime, you know. So yeah, that's my number 8.
Fifth Element is that's a top tier movie all the way around. And you know, whether it's that makes it the comedy,
Yes,
Even in
yeah.
there's silly parts in it. There's fun parts in it. There's amazing. I mean, when Lilu is kicking the shit out of everybody because she learned kung fu. It's amazing film. And like so, the moment you see it, you go, "Oh, I've never seen anything quite like this."
And
you know?
we still have not seen anything like it.
No, not at all. But another guy, once again, was dancing around my top 10. No doubt about
Nice.
it. My next one, kind of chalk, but credit where credit is due. Steven Spielberg.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking Jaws. Now, damn near creates the modern action movie.
Yeah.
Certainly in that time. That was one of the next steps. That was the action movie. Thriller, scary, horror, yes,
Yeah.
I agree. But the action sequences in there are absolutely fantastic. When that boat's just getting chomped away, or, especially when they're killing the captain and so on and so forth, And then, let's be honest, nothing but action. The Indiana Jones movies. I mean, come on, man. Those still, well, first three really hold up. You know what I mean? They're still amazing. They are literally, I mean, that's what him and Lucas were doing. The serials that they grew up watching in the theaters, like a Buck Rogers, and it was just like you tuned in every day to see what the new adventure he would get in, and that's what Indiana Jones is. And he beats the shit out of Nazis.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I'm in. I'm here.
I struggled with him. I think I would have put him in a different genre.
I don't disagree, and again, you're right, because he's another one, to his credit.
Yeah.
A lot of different types of movies.
Yes.
But when I looked at Jaws, Indiana Jones, and Jurassic Park, you're really raising the bar on what an action film can do, or even action sequences in a film can do.
Yeah.
The influence of those three movies in general. If he just quit after doing those three, he'd be a legend
For sure.
For
sure.
And I hear you 100. He's a little higher, mainly because how influential those movies are, than necessarily how good of an action director he is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But even stuff like Minority Report and stuff like that.
That's one that I also
Great
struggled.
action. Yeah.
I thought about those movies and I was like, is this action strictly for me?
I hear you. Again, not an action film, but there were a lot of Sophie choices being made
Yes.
when it came to.
Oh yes, totally yes.
For sure. So go ahead. Please, yours. What are we on? Number 7?
So I think okay.
Sorry, I'm losing count.
Yeah. At this point, we're just gonna say that, but whatever. Tony Scott.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Go. Because
So, Top Gun. Mm-hmm. You have Beverly Hills Cop 2.
there it is.
Right. You have The Last Boy Scout.
Oh, you're
Man
speaking
on
my
Fire.
language. Yes.
Right. Like you don't. I think he's underrated almost in his action
Well,
because
it's also the way he shoots. Like
The
when
way
he
he
starts doing
shoots.
things like, remember, he comes from music videos.
Yes.
So it's quick cuts.
quick cuts. Yes.
He starts experimenting more and more with that. When he really hits it, it's Man on Fire.
Yes.
These
yes.
weird kind of, the music's playing.
Yep,
It's
yep.
gritty. I'm looking at a sunset.
Yeah.
And it just works. It fucking works, man.
And as opposed to his brother Ridley Scott, who was on your list, I think he takes, obviously it's action, so it's
Yeah.
more hyper realistic.
Yes.
But it's also not out of the total realm of possibilities that somebody can use a jet fighter and be badass.
Oh,
right?
sure, yeah.
Or somebody like a ne'er-do-well cop from Detroit can come into Beverly Hills
Absolutely.
and show the town what's up. It's not that it's more believable, but it's somewhat more quote grounded.
Yeah. And again, with Beverly Hills Cop, also to let Eddie be Eddie.
Yes, exactly.
You lose none of that.
Right,
And
right.
yet you still have great action sequences
and
going
then
all around it.
I think in all of these movies, Top Gun, he lets Tom Cruise be
For sure.
Tom Cruise. Man on Fire, Denzel is Denzel.
Yeah.
Like he's
Oh.
fucking Denzel, and that's the one that I think a lot of people kind of point at and that they're like, yeah, that's my favorite one of his.
I think well, we'll get to it when we get to him on my list. I will talk more to that. But yes, one of my all-time favorite directors, and Man on Fire, maybe one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah, that's a great one.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. All right, so mine, I think, we at 6 now?
6.
Okay. I think we might share this one. I'd be surprised if we don't. Paul Verhoeven.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, RoboCop and Total Recall alone,
Yep.
we're done here.
Yep.
I mean, you talk about movies that shaped action in general,
Yes.
forget it. And then add Starship Troopers. And
Yeah.
it's just like, these are, and the beauty of his action is he is throwing America back at itself. What a foreigner
Yes.
thinks of America and its violence, he's putting it back on us. These ultra violent movies.
yes. Yes.
You know, and he doesn't just go like, it's like he just injects steroids into our ultra violence in a way that we don't even recognize. It's a commentary on us.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And he did that on purpose. And yeah, we do share him. He is a little higher on my list. But yeah, for those 3 movies, you know, you cannot go wrong with his depiction of a futuristic cop, right? Like just the way he shows, you know, corporations basically privatizing the police force.
Yes.
Again, in Detroit, you know.
Yes.
The way you know, the way the whole development of the city comes out afterwards. Yeah, I mean he is on my list. He's a bit higher, but for those 3 exact movies.
And you know, and remembering too is that, you know, RoboCop had to be edited over and over and over again. The violence was so over top.
Yeah.
And the irony was that when it got edited, it made it seem more violent
Yes,
than when
exactly.
you watch the director's cut, because it seems so silly and over the top.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
And like the director's cut is only a couple minutes longer, you know, like 2-3 minutes longer. But like you don't lose story,
Right.
You know, the story is still there for
Right.
what it is. You know, and yeah, like everyone's still grimy. You know, Red Foreman. He's still, I think, one of the best villains in the movie because he's so like. He's not an imposing villain.
No.
Right? He like you look at him and you're like, oh yeah, that's my neighbor's dad.
Right.
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 But it's like, wow, he's the mastermind.
Yeah.
He is the criminal mastermind.
And he has no conscience.
No conscience.
He does not care.
He does not care.
I mean, even his own crew, when they're just like, hey, he's got the same car you do. Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah.
There's your fucking car. You
Yep,
know, like,
yep.
wow, guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So, please, yours. Number 6.
So number 6, I chose Ridley Scott
Awesome. Again.
because you know, again, he's got action in his movies, and while they are based in history, there's very little accuracy.
Yeah.
So I chose him for Kingdom of Heaven,
Fantastic one.
Gladiator. What was the other one here that I chose? Black Hawk Down was another one.
Yeah.
You know, for similar reasons that you
For
chose
sure.
Ridley Scott.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Black Hawk Down has literally everybody in Hollywood in that movie. Gladiator, while it is supposed to take place during, you know, the Roman times and all that, the action is nonstop. There is a
Yeah.
great story there.
Yeah.
But when you pit it against actual history, it's
Yeah.
like, what is this guy talking about, right? And even like Napoleon.
Sure.
Right? Something like Napoleon where he straight up said, I'm not going for accuracy. I
Right.
want people to watch my movie.
Right. I'm making a film.
Yeah, I'm making a film, exactly. So Ridley Scott, the 2 Scott brothers made it, you know,
They're-
6 and 5.
I mean, they're among my favorite directors of any genre, to be completely honest. But yeah.
Yeah.
In the action world, I despite, you're right, despite the variety that Ridley does, I just don't know how you make a list like this and you don't have Ridley on it,
Yeah,
quite frankly.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm with you 100. My that'll be number 5. Yes.
Yeah.
Antoine Fuqua.
I almost selected him.
I mean, I'll even go early because it's one of my favorites. I just got to rewatch it again a couple months ago. Replacement Killers.
Yes. Yep.
One of my first introductions to what's his name, Chow Yun-fat.
Yep.
I'd never heard of him. I didn't know of
Interesting.
Hard Boiled and the whole,
Yeah.
Chinese kind of, action films that were being done
Yeah.
over there. So, but I knew he was promoted as like he's finally coming to an American film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember the first time watching that, it was the gunshots. The
Yes.
gunshots sounded like they were in my head. It was
Right,
just,
right.
he does that cool thing where he slides and stops himself with the gun. You
Yes,
know what I
yeah,
mean? I was
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
who directs this? This is amazing.
It's
you know?
funny that you mentioned Antoine Fuqua because I was going to choose John Woo
Who's
for Chow Yun-fat.
and believe me, another one that danced around mine. Believe me, John Woo definitely did. Yeah.
You know, The Killer, Hard Boiled,
Right.
Face Off,
Yes.
Broken Arrow.
Broken Arrow,
You know, so it's like, all right, when does Howie Long get his? you know?
I hear you. My other two with Fuqua, the Equalizer series. I love
Yes.
that.
Oh, great,
Because Denzel, pretty much, you tell me he's in it, I'm watching.
Yeah.
And then Training Day.
Okay.
I think to me, it is one of the weaker of the Denzel movies. What I mean by that is simply that I think Denzel could have done that role in his sleep,
Yeah.
quite frankly. I'm not shocked that he killed it, but I think he's better in other things.
Yeah.
But it's still a movie I return to a lot, and it's got really good action sequences and so on and so forth. And just, again, Antoine Fuqua, just one of those ones that I'm a big fan of
All
in
right.
that way.
That was your number 5?
Yes.
Number 5. My number 4.
And I'll add one more to Antoine
Yeah, yeah.
Fuqua. I'm sorry. Tears of the Sun.
Great movie.
With Die Hard guy Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis,
Yeah,
yeah,
another fantastic one of his. But yes,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was my number 5.
Okay.
And yours?
Number 5 is James Cameron.
Okay, go ahead.
Aliens.
Yeah.
Is action 100%, right?
Yeah.
Terminator 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Number T2 is, I think, one of the penultimate action movies out there, right? If that's not the definition of action blockbuster,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I honestly don't know what it is.
What redefined it? Let's be honest,
Yeah,
right?
right. So
raise the bar.
Raises the bar. And then True Lies,
There you go.
right?
There you go.
Which, when you have a pile of clay by the name of Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're gonna want to put guns in his hand.
Yeah.
You're gonna want explosions. As weak or strong as the story might be, people are gonna want to go see it because it's this larger than life person being directed by this person who has these larger than life ideas.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think James Cameron is one of those guys who, when it came to action, he did it really well.
Yeah.
You know, Avatar, I'm kind of hit or miss.
Yeah.
But again, even the action in those movies
Oh,
can't compete. Right?
well,
You
actually,
cannot
even in
compete.
Titanic.
Titanic,
Towards the
yeah.
end, was, oh my God.
Well, I mean, even the action of the ship
Breaking in
apart,
half, you're just
right?
like-
You see the crack,
Yes.
and then you see
The people falling.
the people falling, and just the turmoil, and it's like, wow, I'm in that mess. You know,
100.
so, yeah,
He's on my list also. He's a little higher than you, but yes. Everything you're saying, yes, 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so my number 4, we've already talked about him. We're going to talk about it again. Tony Scott.
all right.
Because
yeah, yeah.
again, the ones I had put down, I'm with you here. Top Gun, obviously,
Yeah.
game changer of a movie. I mean, it creates a bunch of stars, but at the same time, changes the way a movie. If you really look at Top Gun, you're watching a long form music video.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
Highway to the Danger Zone. You got the Berlin song. You got all these,
Yep.
and they're all happening in the action sequences. You're just watching one long music video. You know,
Yeah.
And even the way it's shot, everything. You know what I mean? And I just feel like such a game changer in general. The next one I had was Crimson Tide.
Love that movie.
I mean, I like great Jane Hackman again, Denzel Washington. It's like putting peanut butter and chocolate. No, I didn't mean that color-wise, but peanut butter and chocolate in a movie, and I say yes, I'm already in. And then another one, look around that movie, and you'll be like, oh my God, there's like 50 other people in here. I knew, Gandolfini before he's Gandolfini is in that thing.
yes.
You know,
Yeah.
great movie, and it's just again. The action obviously is not always punching, throwing kicks, and so on and so forth, but the action is the intensity in that thing of can we control what's going on here. The other one I had, Last Boy Scout, it's again, I think is underrated. You and I have connected on this movie several times. These are among the lists of movies that Nick and I like to talk about where when we grew up watching them thinking, well, this had to be a major hit because I love this fucking thing. And you find out, oh no, giant flop. Didn't make a lot of money and people did not like it. And Last Boy Scout was definitely one of those, but I love it. I watch it every time I see it. I think it's fantastic. And, his directing in that is great. True Romance, so on and so forth. To me, one of those guys, when I look at his IMDb, I just go like, yeah, everything. Keep coming. I don't, sadly we lost him way too soon. It's a real shame. Even his last one, I think, is the Runaway Train one with Denzel. I think it's, what is that?
Unstoppable.
Yeah, Unstoppable.
Yes.
Which, woo! I mean,
That's a cool movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to make you feel like you're on the edge of your seat watching freight trains.
Totally.
What?
Yes.
And then you're
Yes.
10 minutes into it going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yep.
no. A great director, an all-time favorite. His IMDb is just nothing but yes, and more yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why I have him really high on my list. Again, number 4. So you're number 4, please.
Okay. My next guy is Takashi Miike.
Oh, okay.
So,
This is new to me.
Japanese director.
Okay.
He did 13 Assassins, which is a great fucking movie.
Okay.
And I believe it might be a remake even.
I think so, but great movie.
Yeah.
I did not know this director, but I know that movie. Go ahead. I'm
So
sorry.
he also did Ichi the Killer, which is about a very specific hitman in Japan.
Okay. I know that name.
These are all great movies.
Okay.
His style is. He sometimes gets compared to like the Japanese David Lynch.
Oh, interesting.
Because his other movies
Okay.
are incredibly weird.
Okay.
But he's got a great eye, I think, for action as well.
Okay.
he's got like Gozu, which is also kind of it deals with like the mob scene in Japan, but it's mixed in with the weirdness that people attribute to Lynch. You know,
Okay.
so it's like mobster Lynchian in a way. You
Okay.
know, he has remade a couple of other movies like The Happiness of the Katakuris, which I know I'm massacring that part, which is definitely a remake. But you know, Takashi Miike, his style is artsy, but when you see it, you're like, oh, this is one of Miike's films. You know,
Okay.
it's very memorable.
Okay.
His you know his entire catalog is talk about range.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
right? Like this is one of those directors who, along with like Ridley Scott, I think, and others that we've mentioned
Sure.
already, definitely has the range to do other things, emotional, a little bit
Okay.
more spookier.
Okay.
But when it's the action stuff, you're like, oh shit, yeah.
Yeah,
Like, this
13
is-
Assassins is amazing. It's that one I have seen, but Ichi the Killer,
Ichi the Killer.
I have seen that title on stuff that
Yeah.
one of the channels or whatever, but I've never.
He's
never
also,
pulled
you
the
know,
trigger.
famously he did Audition, right?
Ah,
so
okay.
that's the one that I think a lot of people know his name by. But when they started exploring, and when you get to Ichi the Killer,
Mm-hmm.
and again, the cover of that movie is the face of Ichi.
Okay.
And one thing you notice is that
Yeah.
he's got the cuts on his cheeks,
Yes.
kind of like the Glasgow smile.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a gnarly movie. It's awesome.
Okay.
It's fun. But yeah, Takashi Miike is.
That
my
was a
number
nice
4.
surprise because that's not a name. Like I said, I knew the movie, but I didn't realize there were more that came from him. So thank you. That's a good one there. All right, my number 3, one we've already talked about.
Yeah.
So I will mention Michael Mann again.
Okay, yeah.
Again, this is guy. I mean, Heat. Heat was one of those first movies I remember seeing that was profound in a way that I didn't know you could do action and have a story that was that deep. Prior to that, my action was, and no offense because I love every one of these movies, but was more the Schwarzenegger kind of and Stallone kind of action. They didn't have much of
Yeah.
didn't have to have a story. You wanted to watch him kill 500 people.
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean? Throw knives and say stick around. You know what I mean? Like good enough. That's all I want. I'm in
And
it.
cut.
And yeah, exactly. But one that we did not mention that I would put it's a personal favorite of mine, Collateral.
Yes, yeah.
Love Collateral. That is one of my
Jamie Foxx, Tom Cruise. Yeah.
one of my all-time favorite Michael Mann movies. I do argue with his ability to. Apparently, he does as much as he loves L.A. He does not understand traffic in L.A. because everybody seems to get everywhere in L.A. in his movies very quickly. But I love Michael Mann and his action. Like I said, Collateral, Heat, Last of the Mohicans, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
To me, he's just top tier guy.
Yes.
But he's my number 3.
Okay, my number 3 is Paul Verhoeven. Again,
yeah.
for the movies we've selected already.
Please.
RoboCop, Total Recall. When you're watching Total Recall and you're going to Mars, so it's science fiction.
Right.
But then you have the shootouts, not just in Mars, but
Yeah.
in the airport, in the bars, and then it's mutants all of a sudden, and they're also shooting at you.
Right.
It's amazing movie.
I mean,
and
he fights a drilling machine that's
a
going
drilling
through rock.
machine. Yes, right. Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
You've got Sharon Stone in that movie, and she's I forget the other lady's name, unfortunately.
Rachel Tacone?
Yes, there you go, Rachel.
Whew.
Yeah. Yes.
Again, do not ask me when my anniversary or my children's birthdays are.
Sharon Stone, basically like martial arts fighter in that movie, right?
Yeah.
Michael Ironside,
Dude.
like another badass
Yes.
from the 80s, right?
Yes.
And then you go up to Starship Troopers, and it's like, okay, everybody else step aside.
Yeah.
Let me show you yourselves. Let me show
Absolutely.
you society, right? Because
Absolutely.
it is a departure from the book, but I think his version, which is unfortunately being remade, I think it will forever stand out. Obviously,
Yeah.
it made a person out of Casper Van Dien. Clancy Brown is an unknown hero in that movie. right?
Ironside's in it too, right?
Ironside is also in it.
That's
Yeah. And then a little trivia that I always love pulling out. The soundtrack is by Basil Polidorus, and during the prom scene, you got his daughter Zoe Polidorus singing a David Bowie cover.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Right on.
so that's my number 3. I love Paul Verhoeven. It's
No,
awesome, and his action is like, undefinable.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. And again, made my list. Yours a little higher than mine,
Yeah.
but yeah. No, I couldn't make an action list without Mr. Verhoeven. So My number 2, again, we did talk about him already, but he deserves to be talked about again, is James Cameron. The Terminator 1 and 2, Aliens. I think the genius of Aliens was to look at Ridley Scott's and said, well, I can't outdo that, so I'm going to go in a completely different direction.
Right.
Forget being suspenseful, thriller, or scary. I'm just going full action. Everybody's going to get a machine gun, and we're just going to shoot the shit out of everything that moves.
Yeah.
And then, True Lies. The genius of not only... The action is fucking top notch. I mean, he's got Harrier hanging from a fucking building. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Not only is it top notch thing, but also the parody of everything that Mr. Schwarzenegger had been doing up until that. The joke is kind of like, oh no, remember he's always been this superhero. Well, now we're going to make him, he is a superhero, but we're going to add this comedy to it. That whole scene where he's drugged and he's telling her exactly how he's going to kill everybody in the room and then does it. Things like, wait a minute, the wife, like, you're what? And it's just,
also, somehow Tom Arnold becomes kind of an action guy. In
huge
this movie,
out of that movie. Yes.
Tia Carrere's in this.
Who is great in it, and then the late great, what's his name, who's been in almost Bill Paxton. I mean, and again, another one where he's able to balance the comedy.
Right.
I mean, the whole Bill Paxton, anything he's in that movie, you're laughing your ass off the entire time. And Tom Arnold the same. He brings the levity to it, that allows for all this. They jump a horse. Well, not literally, but you remember he's going to jump the horse into a pool. The motorcycle jumps into a pool. I mean, the bathroom sequence when they're fighting, the whole thing is just, James Cameron is... Unfortunately, only because he's number 2. But again, I don't know how you talk about action movies. You don't talk about James Cameron.
Definitely,
for sure.
Yeah.
Please, you're number 2.
My number 2, we have mentioned him already, but it would be Mr. George Miller.
For sure.
I love the Mad Max series.
Same.
All of it, This includes Fury Road and the newer Furiosa. Just the way he makes you feel, not like you're part of the action, but like you're almost witnessing it's almost like a documentary, those first couple of movies,
Dude.
Just because of his film style. And it's like fast-paced when it's fast-paced. When the story hits, not to say that it's entirely secondary.
No.
But you're almost waiting like, what is Toe Cutter going to do?
Right.
And how are they going to catch this guy who's already killed a few cops?
Right.
Everyone else has quit.
Right.
And then you got Mad Max, Rocketinsky fucking rebuilding his car, the Interceptor, right? And then his best friend dies in a motorcycle accident, and it's just vengeance on wheels, right? And then you have the second one, was the Road Warrior, and then Beyond Thunderdome. Again, all action. He fights Master Blaster. He fights. It's just fucking amazing shit, right?
I mean, he takes you into and to do action like Cars. But in a different world,
in a different world, because you have like a George Lucas who did, American Graffiti, right? And that's cool, right? It's cool. Cars, again, right? But George Miller's version of Cars is like, this is a weapon,
right?
Right? It's a necessity and a weapon, and it's survival. Yes, exactly, right? So George Miller does get my number 2 spot.
Well, again, I think the only reason he was in my number 10 is because I didn't feel like he had 3 separate movies. Otherwise, probably would have been much higher. But I'm not overly surprised how many we're sharing here.
Yeah.
And I'd be shocked if we don't share our number 1, and maybe not. I don't know.
All right.
My number 1 for me, it goes to me. He redefines everything that I loved about action films, and anything I've ever seen has clearly been influenced by what he's done, and that's John McTiernan.
All right.
I mean, you're talking Die Hard. That literally, in every sense of the word, changes how an action film is seen forever.
Yeah.
You didn't need to be Schwarzenegger. You didn't need to be Sylvester Stallone anymore. These, massively oiled up. It was the everyman saving the day.
Yes.
And that movie, to this day, still holds up. It is so good in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
One that is one I revisit anytime it comes. Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, love that movie.
Amazing film. I just love everything about it. It's just, I can never stop watching that one. And then, Predator. Come on.
Dude, yeah.
Fucking Predator, dude.
You do not get any more action than Predator.
It's just... Jesse the Body Ventura has a giant Gatling gun automatic weapon, and they are literally shooting at trees in the forest and mowing it like grass.
Yes.
Forget about action.
Well, you literally nuke a portion of the forest to get out.
Right. It's just the whole... He goes from this being a crack unit of these amazing weapons that takes out an entire thing to the very end. He's using logs and sticks
yes.
to try to kill things. You know,
you go from technology to primal.
absolutely,
right?
and it just the action sequences keep you on the edge of your seat. You have
Yes.
no idea what's going to happen next, and it just and in the range. I mean, you could argue that Hunt for Red October is kind of heady a little bit, you know,
Yeah,
it's a little brainy, you know. Die Hard has both. It can be fun and also brainy, you know. And it's just, again, he's he was one of the first names that came to mind when we discussed doing this. And when I looked at his IMDb, it was just like, well, these three alone, because of how they've changed my viewing of action films, and then just how they changed Hollywood.
Yep.
You know,
so
your number one, please.
My number one is Mr. John McTiernan. So this is the one when I was asking my brothers, you know, not for like their feedback, but more of like who are my favorite action guys.
Right.
All three of my brothers named John McTiernan.
Yeah.
Right. Because again, Predator.
Ugh.
It's, you know, for the time it's from.
Oh, yeah.
Which, you know, it's
Yeah.
80s, it's machismo and all this.
Yeah.
When you have, you know, Schwarzenegger and
Carl Weathers. Yes.
And they do the handshake, right? Like, I think everybody got sweaty in the theater and got buff, right? Regardless of who you were and, you know, whatever you chose to be.
For sure.
You got buff and you got sweaty,
yes.
right? And you grew muscles. And yeah, it's you're fighting an alien basically, right? Again, from technology to primal, you got to cover yourself in mud and survive. And the only way you can survive is I'm going to set this nuke off and then fly out of here in a helicopter, right? Die Hard, again, a great movie, stands the test of time. But he also did Die Hard with a Vengeance, right?
The third in the series,
The
right?
third one, which
fantastic.
You take all the elements of Die Hard, but now you have it within the confines of New York City.
Yeah.
Right? And then to make that work and to make it feel like, all of the city is affected by this terrorist.
Yeah.
And this is the same cop from the first one that's going to get us out of here. Right? Like, and again, the explosions, the
subway explosion,
the subways, the wire
taxi,
cutting that guy in half, right?
Oh, the taxi through the park.
Yes,
dude.
exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Like it's just a fun movie. 13th Warrior.
Dude, thank you. Thank you.
You know,
it's one we share. I think it's. I don't know how many people know it. I think it is vastly underrated.
Big time.
The writer is the guy who wrote Jurassic Park, correct?
Yes.
Same guy. Okay.
Yeah, same guy. Yeah.
But yes, please continue.
So
please.
you know,
13 Warrior. Yeah.
Originally called Eaters of the Dead. You know, now famously, John McTiernan did leave the project because the writer decided, and I forget his name, but he did decide to kind of step in and be a Budinsky and you know, take over the movie. But I think it's credited to John McTiernan.
I believe so.
Which
his DNA is
all over it because when you watch the fight scenes, dude, it's for its time.
Yeah.
You know, I know people may clown on it because it's a little nonsensical, and you know, you have Omar Sharif kind of give up on acting because of it. But if you are going in for a no-brainer retelling of the Beowulf story,
right,
it's the 13th Warrior, right? You get Bullywolf, which is the Beowulf character.
Right.
That last scene when he fights the mountain cannibal guy.
Yes.
And the majestic music that plays after. And then like that dog howl to let everyone know like, oh yeah, he's dead, by the way, right? Oh, I fucking love that movie.
It's amazing. I think it's a very underrated film. One of my favorite parts of that movie is when you see him learning their language.
Yeah.
The way they cut that, it gets rid of so much. Like, instead of having everybody talk about how he's learning the language, it feels like you're learning the language.
Yeah,
with
well,
it, you know?
and that's one of those nonsensical parts where it's like, that's not true. But in
works.
the context in this movie, which we're already traveling with a bunch of Vikings because we got selected by the Angel of Death, you know?
Right.
Like, yeah. It makes sense. Like,
for sure.
Forget about it. It makes sense, right?
I again, if you're listening to this and you have never seen the 13th Warrior, do yourself a favor.
Do yourself a favor. And
if you're a fan of action movies in general, I don't see how you won't like it. It may not be one of your top favorites, but I promise you, it'll be good.
There is one more that I'll add for his list.
Please.
And action is in the name of the movie. The Last Action Hero. Another Schwarzenegger movie.
Yes.
With the bad guy Tom Noonan. You know, kid gets the magic ticket and travels through movies, but so does one of the bad guys in one of the movies, and it's fun.
Oh.
And again, nonsensical. None of it should make sense, but somehow it does, and it's fun. It's just sit down, eat popcorn, drink your soda, watch it. Things blow up, go home. You're happy,
Yes.
right?
And another one that where Schwarzenegger kind of takes the piss out of himself.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and I always enjoy when somebody is willing to do that.
For sure.
And yet at the same time as it's mocking those movies, it's also doing some really cool fucking action sequences.
It's
that
also
other
being,
movies wishes they could do.
Yeah,
you know?
it's also paying homages,
for sure.
Because you have like the Seventh Seal homage with death and everything, right? So it's cool. It's a cool movie. It's one that I know doesn't get the credit that it deserves.
It was considered a flop at the time, and whatever.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed that movie.
But it's fun, yeah.
Yes.
So John McTiernan is my number one
For sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of when I think of action movies, and obviously, look, you have Sam Peckinpah, and you have people like that from the 40s, 50s that were doing action. I understand. They set the stage for a McTiernan.
Yes.
But when I think of what I've watched, what I enjoy, like he is the Beatles of action films.
For sure.
We're all genuflecting to him, outside of perhaps maybe like ones that take from the Asian action films. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we are all genuflecting to him, saying thank you for showing us a blueprint that we could take off from there. Literally with Die Hard, other movies became it's Die Hard on a boat.
Right.
It's
right.
Die Hard on a that was a pitch in Hollywood.
Yep.
To put a movie. Again, maybe he didn't write it, but to direct it in the way he did. I mean, to use the building that is a real building and then go, oh, these floors aren't done. Well, what if we blew up a few? And it's amazing. It just and Die Hard again as a game changer and as a director, you were again. I'm not surprised he was your number one at all, and I'm not surprised that we shared that just because of obviously we know each other very well.
Yes.
But I'm glad to see that. Yeah, because everything you said, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. So that's our top 10 action directors. We are going to explore other genres, of course. I think we're going to try to do this in alphabetical order of genres.
Right on.
So the next one would be adventure. So that would be somewhere down the
Not
line.
not bummer movies.
Oh well, yeah, we could do that.
Boston movies is
Boston. Well, I mean, all of Mark Wahlberg's movies at this point, right? So hopefully some of these made your folks' lists.
Sure.
If you have anything out there that you would want to throw our way, of course, let us know. I know we left out people like Guy Ritchie, who is pretty well known for his movies. Martin Greengrass, I think is his name.
Yeah, he was another one. There was damn it, I can't remember his name. He's been doing all the ones with Tom Cruise lately. The Live, Die, Repeat one. The Mission Impossibles. I was like, oh, God.
Right, yeah, right. So, like,
literally, Tom Cruise was like, parachute out of a plane? Sure, I'll do it.
Exactly,
do it on a motorcycle?
yeah.
Sure, I'll do it.
I would have even put, like, Neil Blomkamp in there, right? Because it is futuristic type of stuff. It is dystopian, but there is a lot of action in those movies, right?
No.
Again,
narrowing this down to 10 was not easy.
It is not easy. It was kind of homework for us, but it's like the fun type of homework where we get to look at whatever movies we have in our collections and say like, oh yeah, that
if only
one.
school was this, I would have got straight A's.
Same. Well, I don't know because So, what have you been watching?
Unfortunately, nothing fantastic movie-wise. There was a really crappy movie, actually. I think it was called To Catch a Killer. It was on Netflix. Just the saddest part was there's good people in it, people that I really enjoy seeing. Shailene Whitley was, I think that's how you say her name. I think she was the main character. The FBI agent was, God dang it, I can't think. He was the bad guy in Rogue One. He's English.
Oh yeah.
The other bad guy that wasn't Darth Vader in Rogue
One.
Right. But and these guys, they're good actors, but it just, the movie did not work. It was just, I don't know, really bad. The only other thing I've been watching, because I have been busy with a few other things here and there, was the last few seasons of Brooklyn Nine-Nine got put back on Netflix, and I have been binging the shit out of that. I love Andy Samberg, and I that show's just great. It's another one of those ones where they'll give you 5 episodes in a row where my belly's hurting from laughing, and then they'll do the one where am I tearing up a little bit?
Yeah.
And just I'm a big Andy Samberg fan. And then the Brower, I know we lost him a couple years ago. Right. He's that plays the commander, and he's just That
He's
character,
awesome. He
he's
is awesome,
amazing
yeah.
in it, and he's always a great actor in general. But
Yeah.
he's so good in that.
It's funny because that's one of the ones that Amy and I kind of go back to, just to
It's like comfort food.
Yeah. It's when we reset, we go back to that show.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brower is amazing. The comedian.
Oh, it plays the secretary.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Gina. Yeah.
Gina.
Yeah. So she's hilarious. Just with her mannerisms and everything.
His little friend that always does the weird, says things that you go, that nobody says it like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Right.
just
Yeah. So yeah, I love that too.
Fantastic. But
Yeah.
that's all I've been watching this week. I've just been busy. I haven't, as far as watching.
Okay.
Just that. Yeah.
Um,
How about yourself?
Amy and I have been taking in the new White Lotus season.
I haven't even started on it. I don't know why, because all I hear are good things. But please.
I haven't watched season 1. I started with season 2.
Okay.
And I hated everybody on the show.
Are they connected? Are the seasons connected? Do you have to
Yes.
watch one? Oh, okay.
You don't have to. I don't think you have to watch them to get the hang of
Okay.
season 3.
Okay.
But there are characters that reappear.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, this one starts off pretty good.
Okay.
I think we're maybe 3 episodes in
Okay.
right now. And again, I hate everybody in there, because they're all rich, right? So this is an easy show. If you already hate rich people, this is a good one to continue hating rich people, right? Because everyone's spoiled and everyone acts like a spoiled rich brat. And it's funny because in this new one, Patrick Schwarzenegger is in it,
Oh, interesting.
and he does play kind of a muscle-bound doofus,
Okay.
And there are very obvious, in my opinion, very obvious references to his dad's workout application, which is called the Pump,
Oh.
because he says do they have a rowing machine? Because you got to get the pump on.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm like, is that some sort of product placement there? But it's cool because this season they're in Thailand.
Oh, okay.
Previous season they were in Italy. And
Okay.
The first season I think they were in Hawaii somewhere.
All right.
But basically the connecting factor is the White Lotus Hotel.
Okay.
So it's a series. It's a bunch of hotels around
And
the
these
world.
people go there for vacation,
vacation,
and then
yeah,
drama
yeah.
ensues.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, but this third season is pretty cool so far. So that's the one we started. But aside from that, have been I took in all of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, which again, hard to not use those for my action.
Yeah.
But they are comic book movies.
Yeah.
Right. So I saved those for something else.
Yeah. He was one because you go like, yeah.
Because even Inception is great.
Tenet's
right?
got amazing
Tenet's
action
got
in
it-
it, but I
yes,
feel like
yeah.
they're almost too brainy to be action films.
Exactly.
Alone.
Right. So yeah, but Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises, I think are fantastic Batman movies.
Yeah.
I still think Bane should have lived to Bane another day, But yeah, I'm very satisfied with what he did. I think everyone's out there has heard of these movies ad nauseum, so I'm not going to go into it anymore. But I love the 3 of them.
Yeah.
I can't watch just one,
It's the connective tissue between the 3 is it's pretty tough. Too.
Yeah.
I think
So-
they're the greatest superhero movies ever made, in my personal opinion.
Interesting. All right.
Because I've always felt like they could, even if it wasn't Batman, if he had made up his own character, the themes he is tackling using Batman, I find so intriguing in the way he uses Batman so he can talk about other things.
Sure, yeah.
And I love that about them, and I'm just a Nolan fan in general.
Yeah.
No, great stuff.
So yeah, so those are the pretty much the things that I've been taking in visually. What have you been listening to?
Musically, again, I was listening still. I just finished off my kind of my Waylon Jennings rabbit hole. Started a Merle Haggard one because I've been wanting to kind of, these are 2 big artists that I like a lot of stuff from, but I definitely wanted to check out just more of what they do. You know what I mean? And so many of those artists too, it's not like they didn't make records, but they're kind of known for more singles and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah,
or
yeah.
older stuff is kind of a compilation of singles. And it's like, well, give me albums. I want to get, so
Yeah.
excuse me, I was doing that. One that I was actually, a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Barry. Shout out to Barry if you're listening.
Barry.
He recommended to me that I just listened to yesterday and was completely blown away by. Number one, they are from the Netherlands. I don't even know if this is actually a word. So we're going to go. Here we go, kids. Time to play again. Can Aaron pronounce it? Let's go. GUG colon LL.
Oh, yes. GG.
GGU colon LL.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I am sure.
Yeah.
Fucking great.
Okay.
I mean, just, I would say bits of Neurosis, bits of Downfall of Gaia.
Yeah.
But they describe them as drone doom. I would not call them that, at least this
Yeah.
album. Very doomy, very heavy, sludgy without the dirt. You know what I mean? Just the riffs.
because there is kind of like a twangy guitar in there.
Little bits,
right?
yeah.
And like even the bass sounds a little, not like compressed, but a little bit more on the higher register. Like,
Yeah.
it does pop a little bit more.
Yeah,
Right.
and vocally you're getting kind of a range of guttural screams and
Yes,
also
yeah.
deep, roars, So I love that. I finally got around to listening to them, the two albums that came out a couple weeks ago. Tim Hecker's new one, very good, although on one listen isn't quite enough. I need to get a little deeper. The one that I was very pleased into hearing again was Wreckmeister Harmonies, their new one. Way heavier than a lot of the stuff they were doing before, made a little more droney, but just I really dig them, and so that was cool to hear them again. Beyond that, nothing else, just the usuals, just whatever I'm listening to in the car or whatever I listen to at work. But those are some of the newer ones that I went through this week. Yourself?
I've been revisiting a band called 71 Ton Man.
Okay.
As the name might suggest, it's heavy. So it's heavy, sludgy. I don't know necessarily that they might call themselves doom, but it is doomy. you know?
Okay.
It's got like the shouted vocals and kind of like the gruffier, almost death metal vocals in
Okay.
it. But it's got those long, drawn out notes with the big hits. You
Okay.
know, almost like a slower Indian.
Okay.
You know,
Like a Noothgrush, maybe?
kind of,
In
yeah.
that? Okay.
But the production is different. I think they might be from Europe.
Okay.
From where I don't know exactly, but it's the type of sludge that I enjoy.
I feel you. Yeah.
They hit the one note and it's drawn out.
Yeah.
The gain, the sustain on the gain is kind of like,
The sustain in the game is the name of the game.
So I've been listening to them, a band called Coil, an older band, which
No
people
Coil,
are familiar
for
with.
sure.
They're one of the greats. A band from I think the '90s called Vast.
Okay.
They had one song that I know hit really big with a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
Not necessarily like industrial, but I guess it's got little tinges of industrial experimental stuff.
Vast.
Vast.
Okay.
V-A-S-T. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. When you hear that one song, you're gonna know the band.
Okay.
But
All right.
I listened to the whole album, and the entire album is actually really good.
Oh, right on.
And aside from that, I've been going back and listening to Tormentor, which I absolutely love. Attila Har. I know you and a lot of other people out there credit Mike Patton with being the voice of God, but for me, it's Attila, because this dude can, from where he started to where he's at now.
Oh, for sure.
It's not necessarily that his vocal range grew, which I think it did, but he was doing this way back in the 80s.
No, I think with him, what I love about him, and it's the same thing I love about Mike Patton, and I don't even mean range in the way I would be like a Mariah Carey or Whitney Houston.
Right.
It's how they use their voice like an instrument. Not necessarily the singing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
what he does with his voice is
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, it would be the same thing as somebody playing a guitar or how they play drums.
Sure,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
It's like there's an artistry to what he does, for sure.
Yeah, and obviously like yourself, I'm a huge Sun fan.
Yes.
The work he did with Penn Temple and Grave Temple.
Yes.
He did work with maybe a not as great band to reference, but Aborum from Italy. He had Plasma Pool, and then obviously the stuff he does with Mayhem. You know, fantastic vocalist. Tormentor is one of those. I guess it would be first wave bands,
I think so. I think it would.
But they also kind of have songs that are a bit more on the poppier side.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So like, I love a band that can do that.
Sure.
I love a band that can do that, and I'm kind of catching up with him again since Tormentor will be coming to town
Oh, okay.
at some point this year. So hopefully we'll be able to go check him out.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I've been listening to.
Yeah, Attila Alive is also something else with
Yes.
him. To me, the best son is with Attila.
Attila, yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
he just adds something to them that just they don't get from a lot of other things.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And lastly, one of the things we wanted to tackle is since we are talking about movies, we lost, let's be honest, one of the greats, Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
I won't even go into how because that seems very weird and very
It is very
sad.
mysterious, you
Yeah.
know. I don't know what you saw last, but
The last thing I saw was I guess they had. I think you were the one who told me is that, his wife, who was I believe 60 something,
In their
he's
60s, yeah.
like 70 or 80 or 90 something years old, and the dog were all found dead in the house,
Yeah.
and they had already ruled out carbon monoxide. So
yeah,
my goodness,
Apparently, I don't know if this is confirmed. So allegedly, his daughter said that they were mummified. Not in the traditional sense, but that just means they might have been gone for a few days.
Ooh.
At that point, they had 2 other dogs that were loose outside.
Okay.
And I think there was a mention of pills.
I did. Now that
Right.
you say that, I did hear that yes, they found open pill bottles,
Yeah,
which maybe
so-
explains the dog.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So like maybe the
I'm-
dog was like,
Well, I just-
arthritic or something.
I joked with you when we talked about it. It's like usually they hear about the dog eating the people that have been dead because he has
Yes.
nothing else to eat. So
Right,
it's just
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
very,
so
a
it's
tragic end
very tragic.
to one of
You
the
know,
great
he-
actors of our generation.
Yeah,
certainly.
he got up to 95 years of age,
Yeah,
which is
that's-
a fantastic run for
absolutely.
anybody.
Yes.
Leaves behind again a huge catalog.
Oh.
Right. So one of the movies that was mentioned before, Enemy of the State.
Yes.
Where he plays again, no surprise, a surly intelligence agent with attitude, right?
Yes.
Which I know for Gene Hackman wasn't a big.
Yeah, being surly apparently was who Gene was.
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
later
totally,
on.
yeah.
And also a take from an earlier film called The Conversation.
Conversation, yeah.
Not that it's necessarily influenced, but it was interesting to see The Conversation as a man who is a person who spies on others for companies and so on and so forth.
Yep.
Deals with his paranoia and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And here he is playing kind of the older version of that same guy
Yes.
in a weird way. There's this little connection there, but a fantastic movie. He's amazing in it.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Famously, obviously, the French Connection.
French Connection. You have Unforgiven.
Unforgiven.
Which to me is an all-time great movie, and he is amazing in Unforgiven.
Definitely.
Another one where
Crimson
he's
Tide also,
Oh,
right?
Crimson Tide, yeah. But like Unforgiven, I think one of the greats is the parts of that is like you talked about it with the guy from RoboCop. Like physically not intimidating.
Yeah.
It's just he's got everybody in the palm of his hand.
Yes,
He does
yeah.
whatever he wants, and everyone's scared of him. That great part where the writer says, "Man, you ought to kill the carpenter with all the thing," and he doesn't know it, but we all know he's the one who's building this house.
Yes, exactly,
And,
yeah, yeah.
and nobody else would have ever said a fucking word to him about the
Right.
leaks. The parts like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and famously also Royal Tenenbaums.
Yes.
Right, where
I believe his last film, right? Yeah. I
well,
think
he had one more after that. Welcome to Mooseport.
that's right. That's underrated, by the way.
Underrated movie.
Good
yeah,
movie.
Yeah. But yeah, he leaves behind a gigantic catalog. I don't even know what decade he started in, but up
I think
until
his first movie, I want to say, is Bonnie and Clyde.
I think you might be right. Yeah, because
Which-
he's also Mississippi Burning, which is
Yeah.
another fantastic movie.
Amazing. The Firm is another.
Firm,
that's
yeah.
an all-time favorite movie of mine. I mean, you got lawyers and any kind of courtroom scenes. I'm already in. I love movies that have that
For
shit.
sure, yeah.
And he's amazing in that. That and Unforgiven. And I mean, obviously, I knew him from Superman, but I didn't know who
I was
Gene
about to say,
Hackman
yeah.
necessarily. You know what I mean? It was The Firm and Unforgiven that you went, oh, now I get it.
Well,
know?
I was about to say, when you look at him in Superman as Lex Luthor,
Mm-hmm.
he is the prototype for that character.
Yeah,
you
oh.
know? Because other versions of Lex Luthor try to incorporate what I think he was doing on camera, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And not that he's lovable, but he is a likable character, even though he is
There's
the super
charm.
villain. Yeah.
There's charm to him. Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah, good point.
Again, fantastic actor. He will be missed, obviously.
For
you know.
sure.
Hopefully, we can find out what happened to him, so we can lay him to rest with the dignity he deserves. But yeah, we also lost Roberta Flack.
Yes. Yes. Interestingly enough, because I knew we would be talking about her, I was searching through PBS. She's got an American Masters episode.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I watched that. You know, a woman whose name I've certainly known. She's had hits.
Yeah.
First time ever I saw your face and killing me softly.
Yeah.
But watching that documentary was I had no idea. I mean, this woman was an activist. This
Oh,
woman,
yeah.
you know, her early career, you know, she's wearing her hair natural. She's got the fro. She's singing about
Yes.
political stuff, so on and so forth. But doing it through jazz, doing it through R&B and all these things that she's touching. And like very like, I guess one of those people you don't realize the stamp they've put on music until you kind of sit back and look at the totality of it all.
Yeah.
And I was really blown away and just like, I don't think she gets enough credit as being one of the pioneers. I mean, hard enough to be a woman in music and be a black woman on top of it, you know?
Yeah.
Just, it was really blown away that, and I guess kind of surprising that she doesn't get talked about more.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Like she's almost like a quick reference point in a lot of conversations.
I mean, for our generation, obviously, she comes to our probably our first acknowledgement is the Fugees redoing her hit song, which she, you know, that was a remake for her also. But nonetheless, it's like, oh, and then she's in the video. They do a live show with her on MTV. And you go, oh, okay, and this is who this woman is, you know.
I think
but there's so much more.
She does the First Time I Saw Your Face, which is a cover. I think they played it in the Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah.
Right? Play Misty
for me.
Where, you know, the movie's already a weird fucking movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, when that song comes on, and you know, I like soul and like R&B type stuff.
Sure.
But I remember I used to watch it with one of my aunts when I was younger, and she told me, she's like, "Oh, that's Roberta Flack. I like her." And I'm like, what the hell? You know, like, I don't know who this is. Like,
well, and reading and hearing the story of that was interesting. The song had been out for a couple of years, and Clint Eastwood's hearing it on the radio.
Yeah.
And according to, you know, these stories over time, but, you know, he's driving down the freeway in here in L.A., and he nearly runs off the road because he's so mesmerized by this song. And I guess he calls up the producer and says, hey, the producer's like, absolutely. And the guy goes, the story goes, he says, well, I only have $1,000. And the producer says, you can have it for 1,000 cents. It'll be in a movie.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Roberta, on the other hand, she said at that time she was thinking, I don't know if commercially I want that kind of song.
Yeah.
And then she was trying to tell him, well, you can't use the whole thing. He's like, no, I want the whole thing.
Yeah.
Overnight, she becomes, wait, who's this song and who is this person?
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Kind of an unspoken kind of heroine, you know?
Yeah, well, and I do, let's be honest, you know, in case you can't tell, I am, you know, a white kid from the suburbs, you know. I imagine in black communities, everybody knows Roberta Flack. She is who she should be in black communities.
Of
you
course,
know
yeah. I mean, you know, she one of those people that, you know, we will say this endlessly, I think, that does not get the credit they deserve. Right?
Certainly that documentary made it very clear to me. My God, we should be really talking about this woman way more.
Yeah.
You know?
So, you know, rest in peace to her.
For sure.
A great vocalist, great
Absolutely.
musician. And one last one, we just lost David Johansen.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know too many folks that might know who he is because he has been out of the kind of the spotlight for a while, but he had cancer, unfortunately.
Yeah,
you know,
I saw
he was
that.
diagnosed recently with cancer. I know they were trying to raise money to kind of help him out, but he did succumb to his woes, you know, which is a shame. You know, he was an elderly guy, but I think everybody who was aware of him, either in the music sense, knows him from, you know, New York Dolls and stuff. But if you knew him from anything else, you would know him as Buster Poindexter.
Yeah,
right?
that's the weird part. Yeah.
Which he made a whole other character and then was also successful in it, right? So yeah, he had a charm, you know. It took some getting used to, but once you did, I think it stuck, you know.
For sure.
Memorable voice.
His character in Scrooged is what I will always remember him for. You know, Niagara Falls, Frankie Angel. You know, you know, and again, even as a kid, putting those two together, like, wait, Buster Poindexter is a guy from the New York. Wait, I didn't know. And it's just like, oh, and it's not even his real name, Buster Poindexter.
Right, exactly.
You know, it's just like,
it's Davy Joe.
And then had like a really kind of singer-songwriter, almost Tom Waitsy career after the kind of hot thing, you know? Yeah, no, that was, like you said, I know months ago I had seen family was looking for donations and the cancer that was spreading pretty quickly. So it wasn't a shocker necessarily to see, but definitely a loss.
I think when it comes down to like his position in music originally, you know, being kind of asexual kind of, not necessarily androgynous because,
Yeah.
he had a look, right?
Yes.
But, wearing some of the choices he made, especially in a time like that when people were still trying to showcase how much of a tough guy they were,
Sure.
and have a band called the New York Dolls and inspire a glam rock scene, not just from the sound, but the look.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I think that's it's something
Ballsy.
to be said about that. Yeah, for sure.
Pioneers, if
Exactly.
you will.
Yeah,
for sure.
And he was the last living New York Doll. I
Was
think.
he? Okay.
Yeah. I think everybody else had passed away, unfortunately. But another great. So
Absolutely.
rest in peace to
Unfortunate.
these three greats. I know other people have gone, but these are the ones that I think made the most impact on Aaron and myself.
For sure.
But yeah, so we'll catch you next time.
Later on.
Hey folks, if you have any comments, questions, or just want to yell at us for any of the takes we've displayed so far, you can email us at therehearsalroompod@gmail.com. All one word together, therehearsalroompod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram at therehearsalroompod or on Facebook at The Rehearsal Room.